it all goes back to communication, right? If you're following the policy, there's not a lot to complain about. I mean, you're going to get complaints, but the policy is the policy at the end of the day. So I think sticking to policy, that's a big one for me anyways, because if you go back on it once, it's going to turn into a snowball, right? Going downhill fast. With you change your policy one time, someone else hears about it, and then you're changing it all the time. So just sticking to the policies that are outlined as best as you can, with still being a successful company and doing everything to the dot your I's and cross your T's, I think is really important on that policy procedures aspect.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert, and this is your 4th of July edition. Today's guest is an industry expert with over 2 decades of experience in marketing and facilities. He leads the comprehensive marketing initiatives of his company, orchestrating strategies to effectively promote community facilities and elevate brand recognition. For over 2 decades now, he's worked his way up the ladder through several positions, and he is currently the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at FMC Ice Sports. Please welcome Pat Furze to the show. Welcome, Pat.
Thanks for having me, Jay. Good to see you.
You too, man. You too. So we said July 4th, holiday edition. We'll jump right into it. We're going to talk about ice in the middle of summer. What? So let's get to it, Pat. You're in the business of ice and arenas and ice management. How do holidays affect your business? Not just the 4th, but any holiday.
Sure. Holidays are a boon or a bust for us.
You say more about that.
It can be fantastic. So something like a Christmas vacation week, or even a February vacation week during the skating season, as people like to think about it. You know, we have public skating sessions with 250, 300 people on a session during the day, during the week. And people are looking for something to do in the winter during those times when they get the skates for under the Christmas tree or wrapped up for whatever holiday they celebrate, and they're ready to come out to the rinks and try them out. So that's the good portion of holidays, and things like even on Columbus Day, Veterans Day, those holidays during not the peak season, but still during our skating season are usually pretty strong as well. We have opportunities for people that can come to the rink that don't always get a chance to come to our daytime sessions because they're in school, they're at work, whatever you may have. And then there's the summer holidays, whereas the bust portion of the seasons for us for holidays. You know, July 4th week, the week we're in right now, every rink is much slower than they are every other week of the summer. The people are traveling. They don't want to skate despite it being beautiful weather. It's hot out. It's cold inside. You know, we try to be a little creative around those holidays to get some people in the buildings. But by and large, most of our facilities actually do close on July 4th with very minimal business, and even around the days around them sometimes have the same impact. So the summer's tough in general, but especially the holidays.
Got it. So boom or bust in terms of the business aspect and the traffic flow and all of that. How does it impact the facilities themselves? Like I believe you have 26 locations.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And how would it actually affect the building or the way the building operates, and how do you and your team handle that?
Sure. So roughly half of our buildings close in the summer. So once those are closed, they're closed. The systems are off. We can touch on some seasonality of business if you'd like later. But as far as the actual systems, obviously it's hot out. We try to have a cold building. So our systems are running, you know, depending on how efficient they are, they're running a lot longer, obviously, in the summer than they are in the winter. Dehumidification is running constantly. It's a big challenge in ice rinks, is getting the moisture out of them. It's as everyone knows, hot and cold air comes together, causes fog, condensation on the glass. You can't see what's going on the ice if you're outside not on the surface. So dehumidification is running constantly, compressors running constantly. We run into a lot of power issues in the summer. brownouts, blackouts, that kind of thing. And when that happens, there's no guarantee that the ice plant, if the ice is going to stay in place and keep its bond to the concrete if it's concrete, or sand in the other situation. And when that happens, we may be looking at business down for a day or two, depending on how long the power outage is, how hot it is outside, how cold it was inside, how long how long the systems are down. Even when the power comes back on, and they don't just flip a switch and turn back on, it sometimes takes a little while for the systems to get back online and running.
Let me jump back to what you said about compressors running all the time. So what do you do? What does your ops team, your facilities team do when something goes wrong and you're occupied? How do you handle that? And what's maybe a best practice that you could share with the audience around, hey, this is what we do, and how do we do that, Pat?
So in the event of something like a compressor failure or just power outage or something along those lines, we have our on-site staff. Either if it's just a shift supervisor or worker, they'll contact their manager, general manager, who then kind of raises the issue up the flagpole if it needs to be done. So if it does need to be done in the event of a power outage, we have a facility status notification email block. So they'll send an email to that block and say power out at this location. That notifies everyone basically on the senior leadership team, the ops manager, the ops team, as well as the maintenance team, so that they can all be activated at the same time when they need to be. So operations manager will kind of take the role of the key point person and communicate to everybody that needs to be communicated with. Obviously, if it's something that happens while the facility has business on it, if it's a compressor that goes down, you can still operate. You can still maintain the ice surface. It's just a matter of how long it's down for, and if you can continue the business through the night or the day, whatever it may be. If it's a power outage, obviously you can't skate in the dark, or you shouldn't skate in the dark anyway. So that's an evacuation of the building, and that's another whole issue entirely. But ops manager again is kind of the point person, and then on that notification block, that's kind of where all the communication goes through. So it has all the key people on it. They can update things in the nature of power outage happened. National Grid said we'll be back on in 7 hours or 10 minutes or whatever it may be. So we have an idea of what we're looking at. At that point, I get involved with the customer base and say, there's been a power outage, or there's been X, Y, or Z. We've had a tornado hit one of our buildings in the past, so that was fun. So we have had those instances where we're down for an hour, we're down for a month. So it's kind of one of those read and react situations. And I get in touch with the customers, say this is what happened, this is how long we're going to be without ice time or power or what have you, and just kind of continue that communication process right through that whole chain.
Yeah, very good walkthrough. You mentioned communication block, and on the show we talk a lot about systems and methods of communicating. And I might have missed it, but what do you mean by communication block, Pat?
So we have an email. It's called a facility status notification email group, I should say, maybe rather than block. So it has all those people that I mentioned, the ops people, myself, the programming people, everyone that's kind of might have a touch point in the facility has all those people involved, so that it's one chain of emails. It's not 15 emails going out to 15 different people. No one knows what the other person is saying. So it keeps communication very streamlined. Your on every email may not be relevant 100% to what you need to know, but you know what's going on. So I don't necessarily need to communicate exact details to the customer, but I know, okay, this is the situation. That customer's not going to skate tonight, or they'll be fine, one or the other.
Sounds comprehensive. Does it work well for you guys?
It does. When it's used properly, it works very well. There's obviously always side conversations that take place that may not need to include everybody, but that's the jumping off point. And when we get to the point of resolution, it's usually less people involved, but it's a great way to start the conversation and then end it. So once everything's resolved, email goes back out to that group, and everyone knows we're back online.
I think it's key what you just said, and I love that. It's a great way to start the conversation and to end it, and all parties know. So I guess if there's a takeaway right there or a best practice to be shared, it would be, your communication group or your block, all relevant or what tertiary parties involved, and everyone knows what's happening and they can jump in when they need to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. You mentioned, I don't know, is there any more to say about brownouts or power surges, or did you kind of cover that whole topic there, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how ice techy you want to get about it. A lot of our facilities have painted ice slabs, so the concrete underneath the ice is actually painted versus the ice being painted. In the rinks that we do have ice paint, brownouts and blackouts become more of an issue because that starts to float when obviously the ice melts a little bit, turns watery, it floats the paint.
Mm.
So then the nice white surface you see will turn white with some splotches, or it'll get some of the gray from the concrete will show through. So that's an issue in the summer with anything that's ice painted. It's always fun trying to find a time to repaint because it doesn't take, you can't just, you're in the painting business, Jay, I know, but
Right.
you can't just drop paint down on the ice. You got to cut down and get to the actual level of paint and all that stuff. So it can get a very complicated process.
It sounds that is very ice techy, things I never would have known. Awesome. So if you want to flip it, and I know we have to talk a lot about communication in other regards here, but if you want to flip it, what about the winter? And you talked, I think we've spoken in the past about when there's a certain number of people on the ice versus less people on the ice and stressors to the system, and what happens in the winter versus the summer heat.
Sure. So the winter, obviously, external temperatures have a impact on the building, no matter how airtight it is. Buildings that we run are designed to be cold, so keep hot air out and cold air in. So, even in the winter, there's still a requirement. It's 185 by 85 or 200 by 85 ice sheet in our facilities, and that's, if you do the math, that's a lot of square footage of a lot of water. So you got to keep it frozen. Obviously, it's our business. So even in the winter, you're looking at the systems running regularly with a giant 250, 300 person public skating. There's a huge heat load on the building, on the surface. If you think about how much heat just a person exudes on a day-to-day basis, now that's going on a frozen surface. It requires the system to kick on, run a lot more on something like a vacation week public skating, or even if it's a big high school rivalry hockey game or a college game, the fans are packed in, they're all exhaling, they're all breathing, they're all taking up space, they're all exuding heat. So that load on the building becomes a lot more pressing, even in the winter, when it's, it might be 10 degrees outside and 40 inside, but the ice surface still needs to be maintained at a temperature that will allow for skating and allow for puck movement and whatever it may be that activity is going on. So there's still a load on the facility even in the winter. Those compressors and dehumidification and systems are all still running. It's not as constant as in the summer, but they're still running regularly all throughout the winter. You can hear them running as soon as you walk in the building, any time of year.
Something. So right back to the communication block, regardless of the season, you've got that, because something might go down, and I'm sure it does, right?
Yeah, nothing ever breaks when we're closed. It always, like I say, the glass will break in the middle of a hockey game that, then we're stuck with not having a piece of glass or something along those lines. It never breaks when you have a public skating session or a light day. But glass breaks in Bruins games, and they're a professional facility, and they have many people that make sure that doesn't happen. But when it does happen, they're out there with 6 guys replacing one piece of glass. We have, 2 or 3 people max maybe on a shift for a high school hockey game. So that piece of glass isn't getting lifted by one guy into that slat. It's do the best you can for the rest of the game. Throw a piece of plywood in there and get the glass in another time.
Sure. Nothing ever breaks when we're closed. That's the quote of the whole show right there. I like that. Maybe just move right into something we've talked about in the past, and that's, should I call it the 3 Ps? And we're talking again to overarch it's all about communication, right? When whatever kind of facility you're in, doesn't matter if it's pharmaceutical, ice, aerospace, it's all about communication. And you and I spoke about, is it the 3 Ps?
Yeah. So 3 Ps that I always say I juggle are policies, politics, and personalities. So my main role in the company is ice sales, filling the ice time with youth programs, high schools, colleges, adult groups, those kind of things. So 21 of our 26 facilities are state-owned buildings, and it's to simplify the relationship. It's a tenant landlord relationship. So we're in a lease agreement to run the buildings for the state. So what allowed us to run the buildings is a legislation that was written back in 1992 or so when the company first started, that outlines what we need to do as a company to run these facilities. It outlines our allocation policies, our priority order of who gets priority over who for ice time, and just kind of general best practices and policies that they would like to see us undertake. So we sort of have, the way I explain it is we have two policies kind of. We have a company policy and then we have the legislative policy that we need to follow. And it's the balancing of those two, along with the personalities of everyone that you deal with, that I have to undertake on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of times it's not always all three, but it's usually two of the three that we're dealing with. And it's always personalities. That one's a constant. So it's juggling those, it's managing the personalities, it's managing the policies and the procedures, and really managing the expectations of everyone that we deal with on the customer front. Something I learned a long time ago is I'm not ever going to make 100% of the people happy that I deal with. And I started in the role trying to do that and just realized it's never going to happen. So it's deciding what the best decision is for the company and the customer versus what's the best decision for the customer or what's the best decision for the company. Sometimes that doesn't always work out in their mind that it's the best decision for the company and the customer, but part of that job is communicating to them why that decision was made. And
I like that. So the party that may not feel satisfied or heard explaining why the decision was made, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, explaining the why behind it. And I don't always expect that it's going to be agreed upon by them, but at least they have an upfront, honest answer of why something happened. And that's another thing that I try to be upfront. I've said this to other people in the past. You can't hide from the hard stuff, because if you hide from the hard stuff, it's just going to come back and it's going to be harder the next time you try to deal with it. So when we're upfront, we're honest with customers. Our hope is that they eventually come around and understand why we did something the way we did it. And that customer might be mad at us now or not agree with our decision now, but it might benefit them down the road. It might come back tenfold to them that they're okay. Now they're benefiting from that same policy or procedure that they didn't agree with, a few years before because of whatever it may be the conflict was.
Great process, Pat. Great process. I just, I wrote a couple things down there, and if, a couple takeaways. You're never going to make 100% of the people happy, but really explain with a good answer the why behind the decision. And you can't hide from the hard stuff. I like that too. Yeah, just hit it head on. We talk about regulation on the show or compliance, but it's in a different manner mostly, like whether it's FDA or OSHA. You're in a different situation where I don't know what you're able to speak to about the state regulations, or is there anything more to say about that and how you navigate that, how you handle it?
Sure. I mean, it's very interesting concept. So some of the state ranks were kind of failing back in the 90s, and the CEO of our company kind of saw it as an opportunity to do something that, make a difference. He started out working in rinks and worked in rinks his whole life, and kind of in conjunction with the state, they came up with this plan to, the four-letter word is privatize these buildings, but it's really a public-private partnership. So there's oversight to everything that we do. We are, we're, as an agent of the state, we do an external audit every single year. We follow, the state does inspections of the buildings. The state has oversight of the buildings. So anything that we do as far as a project, a maintenance project, all the permitting that we do is state. In the state buildings, I should say. There's some that we either own or town-owned buildings. So those are a little bit different. But with the state, people will say, oh, well, what is the local inspector going to say about this, whatever issue that we're having? And they don't actually have jurisdiction in the facilities by and large. I mean, I'm painting with a broad brush a little bit with this, but so the state inspection policies and procedures, we follow all of that stuff. Basically as best as we can as a management company. So it makes for some interesting dynamics sometimes, but they're done with the best interest of the facility in mind and keeping them a recreational facility. I mean, the cost of hockey and skating, it's never going to get lower. And the
Right.
better you get and the higher you go in your levels of achievement, you're going to pay more money. So our company really makes it an effort to be an affordable option. Our tagline is making communities a better place, one skater at a time.
Awesome.
So we try to be, once you learn how to skate, you can skate for the rest of your life. You don't, you might not win a gold medal or raise the Stanley Cup, but you can do something with skating from the time you're, young enough to strap the skates on and make it across the ice until you're dragged off the ice kicking and screaming.
Yep. That's great. So for those in the audience that also handle state contracts, or not contracts, but state relationships, are there any best practices? And you probably gave us a few in there, but any summaries there in terms of best practices in terms of staying ahead of those inspections and staying ahead of that communication with the state? What do you as a company do to make sure you maintain compliance so it's not a fire drill?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it all goes back to communication, right? And keeping up on top of those issues and following the policies and procedures that they outline. If you're following the policy, there's not a lot to complain about. I mean, you're going to get complaints, but the policy is the policy at the end of the day. So I think sticking to policy, that's a big one for me anyways, because if you go back on it once, it's gonna turn into a snowball, right? Going downhill fast. You change your policy one time, someone else hears about it, and then you're changing it all the time. So just sticking to the policies that are outlined, as best as you can, with still being a successful company and doing everything to the dot your I's and cross your T's, I think is really important on that policy procedures aspect.
Yep. Good solid advice. Good solid practice. Excellent. I think we covered a lot of what we wanted to, Pat, in terms of the facility and your business. Is there anything more to say around that we haven't touched upon?
I mean, it's a very interesting industry to be a part of. It's one I never expected to be a part of it when I was, applying for jobs out of college, but I've been with them for roughly 22 years or so now. So it's one that you make your to-do list at the start of the day and expect to be done with it at the end of the day, and you almost never are because something happens unexpectedly. But it's very it's a whirlwind. It's fun, keeps you on your toes.
Awesome. Actually, oh, you know what, Pat, there's one thing I want to touch on because we talked about this in the past, but let me just first, it's always interesting to me on the show, and I mentioned it before, whether it's pharmaceutical, life science, general manufacturing, aerospace, it doesn't really, or ice, it doesn't really matter. The lion's share of the challenges are very, very similar. And what you just walked through was compliance, communication. I love the 3 Ps. You have policies, politics, personalities, and a lot of this is applicable across the board. So hopefully the audience is picking up some of what you're saying here and be able to apply it in their business, next day, as early as tomorrow. But there's one thing too, if you have a rink that doesn't need ice. I don't know if I'm going to say this properly. You've done other things with your rinks other than skating. And I thought it was interesting when you mentioned that at one point. Can you share with the audience, what do you do with it? How do you rent it out if it's not ice?
Sure. Yeah, so all but 2 of our buildings have concrete slabs under the ice. So concrete slab has the pipes running through to cool the concrete, build the ice on top of that. So in the summer, when the rinks are closed, you basically have a giant concrete slab of available space. Like I said, it's 17,000 square feet or so of space. So we've done some really interesting things in the past. We currently have boxed cross, which is like indoor lacrosse in one of our facilities. We have two roller derby teams in our facilities. We've had cat shows. We have had
Did you say cat shows?
Cat shows, yep.
Not a dog show.
Not a dog show. Cat shows. Multiple cat shows actually that they span multiple days. They're apparently very huge in the 2 areas. We couldn't fit. We actually lost the cat show in one of our facilities because we couldn't. Our capacity wasn't big enough. So many people came through the door. I know. Who would have thought? We had Comic-Con in one of our facilities for a couple of years. They outgrew the space as well. But we try to be as creative as possible. We had a pickleball a little bit at one of our buildings this year. It's not ideal because it's nice out right now to play outside, but we had a pretty good following for a couple of weeks in one of our buildings for pickleball. So I mean, it's one of those things that it's a big open space. So people are going to look to use it for things. We've had arena football teams in one of our buildings. what you can do creatively and where you can find that outlet for people that need a space indoors. That's not, we get a lot of people that want to do like, say, like a cheerleading competition, but they want that season is our season, is our ice season. So it's finding that neat niche group that needs an indoor space in the summer. It doesn't care if it's cold when they first start playing, because by and large it will still be cold in, the month after we close it. So it's really been interesting to find the different groups that'll do it, and use the facility on the off season on the slab. Yeah.
Credit to you and your team. I love you said creativity. Like, how do you use a space as a real estate owner or a tenant? Regardless, if you have real estate, how do you actually utilize it? If it's not the intended use. So yeah, credit to you and your team. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's some really interesting groups.
Yeah. And I'm kind of stuck on the cat show. I thought it was only dog shows, and it wasn't big enough for the event. That's crazy to me. Nothing against cat shows. It's great. So Pat, thank you. We've learned for, I don't know how long now from you. And we have a bit more to get to. And, we're talking 4th of July, we've got the holiday. Boston Celtics just won the championship, the finals, and you have a relationship there. But I'm going to ask you to get to that point. Like if today's Pat had advice for the 20-year-old Pat Furze, what would that be?
So the 20-year-old Pat Furze had an internship with the Boston Celtics. They were only the 16-time winners at that point. They hadn't won the last two yet. So it was quite an experience. I think the biggest lesson that we had talked about previously was I would learn to use the phone system before answering the phones, to avoid hanging up on some guy named Bob Cousy. I don't know if you've heard of him. Hung up on him a couple times by accident when he was trying to reach the administration in the building. But I mean, yeah, it was a wild experience. Walked into work one day and Red Auerbach was sitting at a desk, just, telling stories. And, I never thought I'd have that experience in my life. Sitting there smoking a cigar in the office, telling stories about, days past. And it was great. It was so much fun to be a part of that, for a summer. But I think, if I had to tell my 20-year-old self something, I think I would have just, learned to network a little bit better back then. Now I can handle it a little bit better. I can stay in touch with people. It's a lot easier also to stay in touch with people now than it was 20 years ago. But, that was a great experience, and I feel like I never capitalized on it entirely, with all the great contacts I made. I still talk, still in touch with them, but not as much as I would have liked to stay as much, stay in touch with as much. And just learning that when you're that age, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna hang up on Hall of Famers. You're gonna be afraid to fail. Basically, don't be afraid to fail. I should say you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna screw up. But especially as an intern, you're almost expected to do that, right? Like you're gonna make mistakes. Yeah. That's how you learn. If you keep making the same mistake, maybe that's another issue entirely. But if you make one mistake and you learn from it and you can take direction, that's kind of where I like to see that I'm at now with employees that I have that are younger. Like to be like almost a mentor, be like, even if something as simple as like, hey, enroll in the 401k, it's worth it. Something along, even as simple stuff like that, it makes a huge difference, in my opinion, to younger guys that are just getting into the industry or into the real world. I mean, when I first started, I was 22 and no industry experience, very little professional experience. And, there's a story about the owner of the company saying if he doesn't stick, he doesn't make a difference soon, he's out. And obviously it must have made a difference and it stuck. I think it worked out pretty well for both sides.
Good, humble advice, Pat. And what an experience with the Celtics, Red Auerbach, Bob Cousy. I mean, not a lot of people can say that. So any other takeaways from the Celtics, like watching that organization and how it might apply to business?
Yeah, I mean, it was a entirely different ownership group back then, but just overall, the having the right people involved and the people that cared about the product or the team or whatever it may be, these guys all cared about the Celtics. They may not have grown up as a Celtics fan. They may not even have been a basketball fan, but they all cared about the Celtics. They all wanted them to succeed. It was during the lean years back in the, excuse me, in the early 2000s. But, they all made every effort to make a difference. Even a lot of the involvement I had was with the community team and getting out in the community and doing events with schools and the summer league that they used to run over at UMass Boston. And just every person from the director to the director of marketing to the coordinator of marketing, they were always at the events. They were always smiling, making sure the kids had the best time. Even the players that were there always interacted. So it made a big difference on me. These guys are millionaires. They don't need to come out and do these community events, but they wanted to, and they enjoyed them. So it made a big impact on me. Just to see that, even making a difference on it, make a kid smile goes a long way. And probably
That's
made a
amazing.
lifelong Celtics fan.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I think, everyone, what I heard was like everyone made an effort to make a difference. And what a great culture. What a great thing to learn and carry
Absolutely.
on in your future. Awesome. So in full disclosure, I don't know, Pat, do you think we should tell the audience? What do you think? I've known you my whole life because you're my cousin and we're cousins. I'd ask you, so I know most of this and maybe I don't know all of it, but is there anything else you'd like to share about you, with the audience? What do you enjoy outside of work?
Yeah, outside of work, I have two very busy little kids that demand a lot of my time and my wife's time, which it's not a complaint. They're hilarious, they're maddening, they're fun, just like any other kid, I think. But yeah, other than that, yeah, love to find myself on the golf course as much as possible. When I'm not on the golf course, love to find myself in breweries, as as much as possible. And live music, my other passion. And then last but not least, the Providence College basketball team. I'm a 2001 grad, and I've been following them ever since first enrolled there. And big passion of mine is that basketball team as well.
Nice. Good stuff, Pat. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. And for the listeners, if you laughed or if you learned, you picked up a nugget, tell somebody. We hope you got something good out of today's discussion with Pat Furze. And it's been an exciting episode of Facility Rockstars. We can't wait to see you on the next one. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Coludus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.